Hi, I'm Marie Elizabeth, and this is Relationship Alchemy. Today, we're talking about making working together work. We're speaking with Sandra Yancey, who is a woman I adore. She's a successful, award-winning entrepreneur, speaker, and TV personality. She has been recognized as a top 100 difference maker by the International Alliance of Women. And she's also the founder of the eWomenNetwork, which is a network of entrepreneurs, of which I am a very happy member. Welcome to the show, Sandra.
Oh, I'm so excited to be on this show with you. Honestly, this is a really important topic. And of course, it would be you who would own it and make it happen, So,
well, I'm so glad I reached out to ask you to speak on this, because there's a story that you've told at conference before that I refer to all the time when I'm speaking with women about the importance of cultivating agility between our different aspects of ourselves.
Yeah.
And would you share that story? It's about the box.
It pops up because I think, strong women sometimes have had a hard time in their personal relationships. And people have asked me, how is it that you work with your husband? And, Kim and I have been together 44 years, and eWomenNetwork is 23 years old, and he started it with me. And it has been work. So that's why I said how to make work work. But what I can tell you is that I've talked about how I shift my behavior in different environments. And I've gotten some pushback like, well, I want to be me and I don't want to have to change. And I'm like, I'm not asking you to change. I'm just asking you to pay attention to your environment. And you already always do it. If you worship, whether that worship is getting quiet and being in meditation, you assume a set of behaviors. If you worship and you go to a destination, like a church perhaps, and you walk into a church, you assume a certain set of behaviors. If you are giving a presentation to the potential biggest client you've ever had, you will walk in that boardroom and assume a certain set of behaviors, right? And the list goes on when you're with your girlfriends, right? I mean, it just goes on and on. So we shift our behaviors all the time in different environments without having to change per se. And so for me, the way it's worked for me is that, at work, I have a certain set of behaviors. I am the CEO, right? He is the president. And we know our niche, and it is women-centric by being eWomenNetwork. Very few things do we really disagree on. Very few, Marie Elizabeth, very few little things over the years. But when those times have come, he acquiesces to me because he knows that I don't normally fight fervently for a particular point of view, unless I know that I know that I know. And when I go home, it's like, okay, I'm not the big boss anymore. And thank goodness I'm not actually. I'm ready for the break. And, I back into my garage just because I'm usually in a hurry to get out. But I back my car in and I tell myself, I actually tell myself, the day of work is done. Now I get to be a wife, right? Now I don't have to be a CEO. I don't have to be the boss. I don't have to know it all. I don't have to call the shots. It doesn't all have to be my way. And I take the CEO hat off metaphorically, open the glove box, put it in the glove box, take out the wife hat, put it on and walk in. And now I get to be a wife, right? And I am married to, and I got no problem saying it, I'm married to a king. I love everything about honoring that relationship. Like, I'm so blessed. I've got a king. It's so great. And Kim will often say to me, what do you want to eat if we're going out? And he laughs at me when he asks, he knows what I'm going to say. And honestly, I usually just say, doesn't matter, honey, just so long as I'm with you. Take me away.
Which is like music to his ears, I'm sure,
Yeah. And I'm like, take me away. And he takes me away, And it's just so wonderful that I can, I mean, I haven't met a meal I really don't like, told. So it's like, oh,
I know. It's like, is it food? I'm in.
exactly. I'm good. Exactly. Yeah.
That's so sweet. And what I want to highlight, aside from the brilliance of that, recognition of shifting from CEO to wife, and that it really is a different energetic, and it's a choice,
Yes.
that you make. There's also the ritualistic honoring of a transition, which I think a lot of us miss as women, is we don't always recognize that it takes a moment to transition from one state to the other. And sure, if we're getting ready to go to a house of worship, say there's that moment where we're getting dressed, we're transitioning, we're in the car. But now that so many of us are working from home, we don't necessarily have the office to home transition. And it's good to be mindful.
Yes.
Doing something like what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, work just bleeds into everything, or our personal bleeds into everything.
Yes.
And we'll just never have a good delineation between the two.
Yeah, but I work in an office, right? I'm on the fifth floor of a tower here in Dallas. But when I decide that I, for example, am going to have a bath, I often say to Kim, "Hey, listen, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to go disappear and have my own little quiet time in my tub." And I have this whole thing where I've got my candle, and sometimes I have a glass of water, and sometimes I have a glass of wine, just depends what's going on and the time of day. I've got, I have a chandelier. So I've put this very distinct light that flickers in the ceiling so that when I'm laying back, I've got my certain bath bombs and some extra bubbles, and then a few drops of different essential oils, and sometimes a scoop if I'm feeling achy of Epsom salts. I mean, I kind of like make a concoction, like I'm making my carnitas for my family. I love that. I mean, I need a little of this today and a little of that. It needs to be a little spicier or whatever. And it becomes a ritual and a set of behaviors that I give permission to myself to enjoy. Just like, honestly, Maria Elizabeth, I give myself permission to be a wife. I mean, I watched my mother who, buried two husbands and spent most of her life, single. And, I watched her and tried to be there for her. And I took care of her the last 5 years of her life. But it's made me appreciate, right, this amazing man who has been there to do so much for me, most of which I don't even ask for, and I've also learned that if I really want something, I tell him. I don't expect for him to read my mind. I don't adopt this, well, he should know. Can't he tell I'd had a rough day or whatever?
After 44 years, you could have that kind of attitude, but I never suggest that.
Right. I just say, hey, I need to get away. I need to not cook tonight. I need to, you know what I mean? And not that he would expect for me to cook, but I have to be vocal around my clarity.
Yes.
When I am so clear, tonight's not a cooking night. I didn't want to talk about, you want salmon or you want trout tonight? You want it grilled or do you want it, flash fried or whatever that is? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I'm going out. And he's like, okay. It's like, where do you want to go? I don't care. Whisk me away.
Well, there's such a generous give and take in the way you're describing it, because I like to tell women, because a lot of women have trouble doing exactly what you just described. It's hard for a lot of women to be that precise and clear about what they want and where they're at.
Yeah.
In the moment,
Yeah.
And so, and there can be a fear of like, well, I don't want to be too demanding. But the way you were describing it, to me, it lands so beautifully, because that clarity is actually a gift to him. Because, right? Because you being clear, the two of you doing what feels pleasurable to both of you, has things feel good. And you're still giving him a choice around where to go. It's not like,
Right.
My way or the highway. We're going to go here. We're going to do this. And we've got to be home by this time. It's like there's ease in it. And that's what I really want to highlight, that beautiful ease between clarity of your desire and room for co-creation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like I'm a woman that needs to be rescued. But what I believe in my heart is that men, and maybe I should say my man, loves feeling as if he is kind of rescuing me. Not in a way that offends me. Like he wants to take care of me. He wants to, like, it's that something that he can do, And I reach over and I hold his hand, and I always put my hand on top of his so that I've got the room, to just kind of move on his hand. So because this can be very kind of rhetorical, very like, we're holding hands as we do, but there's just something about that little extra massaging, and I'm not probing, I'm just I'm just moving, the hair on top of his fingers or whatever. That sounds, but it feels good to him and he loves to be touched. I know that, and creating those little touches, I think, make for really setting up big touches.
It's so true. And it's so funny to hear you describe that about his hand, because there's this little triangle of skin on Patrick's hand. Ever since we first started dating, we've only been together 7.5 years, but there's this little patch that's the softest skin I have ever felt. And it's my favorite part of his body. And so very often, we'll be watching TV or whatever, but I'll just reach over. It's soothing me to touch that place on his hand.
Yeah.
Because it's just soft and full and it just feels so good. And it's funny because I'm touching him because it feels good to me, but I know it feels so good to him too.
Yeah. He feels like, it really moves you from being roommates, which I think is really easy to do over the years, to just making sure that you're still a couple, right? And it's fun now that we have a granddaughter. We kept her overnight. We put on the music, and she watches us dance, and Kim turning me around, and she just watches, and she comes over, my turn, Peppy, and I let her, and he picks her up to dance. You know what I mean? And it's just,
God, that's gotta be the cutest
girl. It's like, and it's kind of helping her know that this is the way it's supposed to be,
right? It's so she gets to imprint that experience of a man and his nobility, say.
Mm-hmm. And if
it's something I say about,
it's my grandfather, the memories that she'll have of her grandfather,
Oh, just so beautiful,
They have a song and he picks her up and up and down, up and drops her a little bit, and she sings it, and she'll sometimes come over and she'll say, she's 2. And she'll say, up and down, Peppy, up and down. All of those things that I just love watching. I didn't have a dad and I didn't have a grandfather. I had neither on either sides of the family. And so to watch all of that, I think is magical. I really do.
Yeah. It sounds super nourishing. It's sexy. Exactly. It's like an unexpected hotness on his part. It gets to come out now. Like in this new phase, right?
Yeah.
You've talked a bit. I've heard you talk at conference as well about how skillful y'all have become at knowing your lane. That you have your lane, he's got his lane.
Yes.
Your lane.
Yeah.
The attempt to not overstep, which sometimes happens. But talk a bit about
I always call it that out. But in business, we call it verticals. Everybody's got their own vertical, right? I call it lane sandbox. I got my sandbox. You got yours, kind of thing. But we've had, we were that couple when we first started eWomenNetwork 23 years ago that thought we could never work together. And their taste, that's still true, I think. So but I do believe that one of the things that we learn, how we learn to find our rhythm, right, was that to really say, this is my sandbox and this is yours. And I won't go into your sandbox without one of two things. One is to ask for permission, and the other one is to be invited. And all I ask then is that you not come into my sandbox without one of two things: you asking for permission, right? Or being invited. And so what that looks like in business is we each have our respective staffs, teams. And so if he is going to ask someone on my team to do something for him, it's important that he comes to me and say, hey, how busy is Leanne? What's her deadlines? I need a little help. I was going to ask her to help me with this. Are you good with that? And I'd say, you know what? She's a little slammed right now, but let me just fire off a quick email. Hey, listen, I can put a pause on that thing that we were talking about. Go ahead and get this done for Kim. He says it might take an hour or so. Let me know if it's more than that. So that I can go back and renegotiate if he tells me it's going to be about an hour. Yeah. And it makes the team feel clear. Yes. Clarity is everything, isn't it?
It is. I mean, that's just what's washing over me as you're speaking. I'm just like, clarity, respect, clarity, respect, clarity, respect.
Right. And I think it's for women in business. I often say, because I teach a lot of sales anymore, I feel like people have really come to me to help them, with their offers and that kind of thing. And what I've said is that, it's very important that you are clear along the way, the journey that you're taking people, right? You're clear on what it is that you're offering to serve them with, right? And you should also be clear that you're not trying to sell people. You're trying to get them clear on whether what you're offering would be of benefit to them and get unattached to the outcome. We say, I'm not attached to your outcome. I am attached to your clarity.
Yes.
And once I know you're clear, I trust that you will make the right decision for you.
Yeah.
It's clarity is everything.
It really is. And in relationships too.
Everything about relationships is about clarity, right?
Because without that, there's so much miscommunication or assumption or, I find I'm always telling people to spell things out more than they think they need to, at least when they're changing an old communication habit, say, yes, not speaking up enough.
Right.
I encourage oversharing to find the right spot, to find the sweet spot.
Right.
Where you know what's enough.
Mm-hmm.
But clarity is everything. And I think in life, we often do expect people to know what we're thinking, or we expect, especially some that we live with for years, to know what we're thinking. And really, it's just a disservice because we don't know. We don't know. There's always a mystery at the core of a person, no matter how well we know them. And
right.
I have a tremendous respect for that mystery, and I love those moments.
Yes,
when
they unveil themselves.
I'm like, wow, you think that?
Yes,
that's fascinating. It's so fun. So how
I have to be really careful with phones. I mean, I can be really misinterpreted in a phone because, particularly in a work environment, because I know that I come off as a very clear, strong woman, and people can attach music to it. I know that so much of the wonderfulness between Kim and I is just, and he's a music man, so it's been easy for me to watch and to learn, right? It's not all about the words. It's just the way I say it, Yeah. I could say, if he says, where would you like to go to dinner? I could say, I don't care. I mean, honestly, I don't care. We'll be together, Or I could say, it doesn't matter. Actually, it really doesn't matter to me. Just want to be with you. Just want to be with you and have a glass.
And the second just feels delicious.
Yeah. It's not suddenly, it just feels, it's,
yeah.
So
is that something you had naturally this understanding of music and tone and sort of, or is developed out over time? Okay, so all the tea.
Tones it. I can still remember about my son, who's today is his birthday, but he's 28. But I will say that when he was, she must have been first, second grade. So whatever that is, 7, 8 years old. And we were going Christmas caroling in the neighborhood. And we were Christmas caroling, and I was next to Ryland. Ryland looks at me and says, "Mom, can't you try pantomiming? Because you're throwing me off key." Jingle bells. I know. It's like, I can't carry a tune, but that's why I can appreciate it. You know what I mean? I'm in awe of the shows like American Idol or The Voice. I'm just like,
incredible.
Oh my goodness, to have that kind of talent, right? And they're all such winners to me. But I do believe that I think maybe you just illuminated something for me. Maybe I have found my way to sing and dance through, my communication, particularly with my husband.
I feel like, at least from what I've seen over years, knowing you for 5 years, and you do. The way you speak, the way you move, like it lands over here very musical, and there is a dance, and there's an energetic dance that you play with him. Yeah. I see you two together. That is just so beautiful to be around.
Yeah. Because you don't ask me to clap to the beat of a song.
Yeah. Okay, I'll never do that.
I can't appreciate the song.
Wasn't he a drum round?
Yes, and still drums. He has a drum set. He drums with Tatiana. That's one of the things she loves it too, is for him to take her upstairs and play the drums. And if I'm in a crowd where everybody's clapping, I can't appreciate the song because I'm so nervous about watching. So I stay on beat. I cannot keep a beat. I can't.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear, if you're willing to share, maybe a couple of stumbles on your way to finding the right tonality together. Were there moments when you began eWomenNetwork, started working together?
Very much
taught you how to
Very much so. A lot of it is that Kim and I have very different styles, and I know that there are people on his team that would never work for me.
Wow.
And I believe I have people on my team that would never work for him. We build our own teams and we work very well together. But Kim is very, for me, if Kim were to say to me, for example, we're going to go to a specific restaurant for dinner, and he says that to me for tomorrow night, I would start thinking about it and salivating about it and imagining the meal, that one meal that I've had before that I loved so much and all of that. And for me, the dinner experience starts when we pull out of the driveway. For Kim, it could be that we pull out of the driveway, and while we're meandering to the place, he might see something else and go, "Oh, I've actually heard really good things about that. I forgot it. My friend told me. Would you rather go there instead?"
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like, man, I've got my meal all picked out at the other place. You know what I mean? Kim can see something and get re-inspired, and he can just spin on a dime. I've had to learn how to pick my battles with that, how to kind of go with the flow on things. That shows up in the work environment, right? So one of the things that we've done is we've created some structures around the agenda. The purpose for the meeting is, so the desired outcome is a decision point on this. Here are the things that I want to talk about. What are some of the things that you want to talk about? And then we create what we call a parking lot, so that when anybody comes up with anything that's off topic, we all have the right to say, can we park that? Can we put it, in the parking lot? And if we've got time at the end, we'll discuss it. If not, we'll have another meeting. But I've needed to do that because, and we all know that we can't give Kim a mouse when we're talking about anything that has to do with the website. because he'll turn it into a website meeting of all the things that we need to work on and adjust and change, because he gets caught up in the moment of things. That is also, what I have to tell you, his creative brilliance.
Exactly. In the right context, it's probably his greatest strength, right?
Yeah.
But in another context where you're trying to have a different conversation, it like you said, you got a parking lot.
For me, who has high need for structure and order and that kind of thing, it can be really difficult. On the other hand, I will, work on my garlic braised red wine short ribs for hours, and I've got a recipe and it's just right. He will go over to the bar and make a concoction, and he'll bring it to me in a martini glass, and he'll say, "This is for the divine Mrs. Yancey." You know what I mean? And he names it, and I'm like, he does it for clients. We have masterminds at our house, and he'll say, "Here is the mastermind." You know what I mean? He just got this.
He came up with a cocktail for the success.
He did. Right? He imagined. He did.
Yes.
The disruptor,
The disruptor. I love that.
Yeah. And it's his concoction. You know what I mean? And he goes and he plays and he makes things, just like he can make music. Yeah. So we really had to learn to appreciate. I'm so glad I have him in my life to bring all that whimsy, that, spontaneity, that I don't think if I didn't have him, I think my life would be probably way more boring. Just really.
Yeah. I mean, there's a beautiful compliment, right? You compliment each other, because I'm sure whether or not he's able to recognize it on any given day, the structure is probably supportive to him and helpful to him too, right?
Yeah.
And the whimsy and the go with the flowness and the creativity is supportive to you. And then there's moments, this happens with Patrick and me too, sometimes where it might be a moment where we don't totally appreciate the other's gift to us because, it's different.
Right.
And in the moment, we wish they were more like us. But, in the end, we've really discovered that too, that to appreciate and celebrate the ways that we're different, that complement each other and make a greater.
Yeah. I'm more likely to get a little miffed at him. You know what I mean? Just,
Same.
What I love about him is it might be something that happens kind of in the morning or something. And then I'll let me just get busy doing something, and I'll probably go organize it like that. And then he'll come in and he'll say, "Hey, so it's 11:30 and I was noticing that there's a movie on. It starts at, 12:30. And I didn't know if you were still going to be mad at me at 12:30, or do you think maybe I could go ahead and make those reservations? Because if you're going to be mad at me at 12:30, there's one at 3:30. And if you're done being mad at me by 2, I could take you out to lunch. But I just wanted to check and see, is this a morning thing, an afternoon?" That it invariably cracks me up, because it becomes very clear to me, how long am I going to let this ridiculous thing ruin my day?
Yeah.
It would take that. Isn't that
great? It's so cute. That is such a skillful move.
Right. It's great. Sometimes I'm like, I need another hour.
I need another hour. I need the day. I'll see you tomorrow. Sometimes you can just laugh. We have a kind of pattern interrupt when we have a conflict sometimes, that we call it being on the same team. So, and we've named our team Team Love Bomb is what we call ourselves. So sometimes when we start to get into a snit, one or the other of us, who is usually Patrick, because I'm the snittier one of the bunch, but Patrick will sometimes go like, whoa, Team Love Bomb. And I start laughing. And then look at the situation again. Okay, if we were Team Love Bomb right now, how would we see this and what would we want to do?
I love that.
Out of the combative thing.
Yeah. We will do a start over. Can we start over? Anybody can call it. Yeah. Anybody can call it. Can we just start over? You know what I mean? And we just both have to look at each other and go, okay, I'm starting over. Right? Yeah.
And sometimes it is by gritted teeth, but then it shifts quickly after that. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, we do that too. We call it a do-over. Same thing.
A do-over. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
You know, great. Anything successful takes work.
Yes.
You know?
Well, you know, I want to highlight the thing you said about the meeting, the way you described having a meeting with, this is what we're talking about. Here are some topics I want to talk about. Here are some topics you want to talk about. Here's what we need to parking lot for another meeting if we don't have time to get to it. All of that, so applicable in business, also so applicable in relationship. Because if there are things, you know, let's say you're in the middle of moving or you're talking about what you want to create, or there's something you need to discuss about the kids or whatever it is.
Right.
Call a house meeting and you can have that exact same structure. I call it a State of the Union meeting because I call it
right.
a union. So, you know, you call a State of the Union meeting and say, hey, I want to talk about this. What do you want to talk about? Great. If this comes up, let's put that over here. You know, boom. And then let's sit down and have this conversation, in a deliberate way.
We do the same thing. We call them family meetings. I have my living room set up so that it's a big round table and it's 4 chairs because there were 4 of us. And anybody could call a family meeting. And Ryland, interesting, our son, was the one who called most of the meetings. And you could call it for not only celebration to announce something, but you could call it because of hurt feelings or feelings of, you know, I'm feeling left out, or I'm, you know, whatever it is. And even as adults, we have had family meetings. After the kids have moved out, we've had family meetings on things. And we have our 4 chairs and everybody sits in the same 4 places like we do around our table when we have dinner, you know, and now that the family has grown, we still, Brianna, Ryland, Kim, and I still have our places, and we brought in the spouses and now our granddaughter and that kind of thing around, but we call them family meetings. And we just kind of know that when we're all in there, and it's not the only time we're in there so that it has the stigma of being just the family meeting. It's just that when we have a family meeting, we know we're there. We know.
I love that. That is
everybody's looking at each other.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love that. I love my living room for that reason. It just feels so communal, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, it's great. And intentional too. You know, there's the fun moments, and then it's like, oh, okay, we're going to have a little more intentionality around this moment. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Well, I've so loved this conversation. And for those of you listening who want to hear more about eWomenNetwork, who want to connect with Sandra, the links are below. And there's also a link to a lovely gift. And go check all that out. And I would just love to ask you, are there any final thoughts that you would like to leave people with?
I just want to say that, you know, my mother told me this. I met Kim very young, and my mother did not want me to date nor marry him because he was a drummer in a band, and I was 17, and she's like, this guy's up to no good, and kind of right. But I married him, and, you know, we've made it all these years. I would say that, you know, my mother gave me so much wisdom. And one of them was that, you know, about 3 years into marriage, I found it, you know, the honeymoon's over, and I found it really hard, you know, and I actually called my mom and I said to her, I want to come home. You were right. I want to come home. My mother did a really good thing. First of all, she made sure I wasn't being abused or anything like that. And I wasn't. I just wasn't happy, you know. And she said, you know, Sandra, she said, you can't come home. You have to stick this out. And she said, you know, love is easy when love is easy. And the real test of love is what you do when it's not easy. You know, and that's why I think it's so important that we're constantly open to looking at, you know, when it's not easy, instead of what can the other person do? What is it that I need to do? If it wasn't that person and I was out trying to meet somebody new, chances are I would behave differently. And if I
Yes.
just put on that perspective with my own husband, I find that I know that he would be incredibly responsive. And so that's why you inspired me to put together this ultimate collaboration checklist. I mean, really kind of the steps for thriving in marriage and business, right? Just some of the things that I have learned over the years of working with my husband that have just really made tough times opportunities to get stronger, right? I find that when you look back and you think of all the things that you survived, it just makes you even have that much more appreciation for each other, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, it's easy when it's easy, and the real test of your love is what you commit to when it's not easy. And that's why I so appreciate you and your work in the world, and you inviting me on this very special conversation. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your yes. And I'm so looking forward to seeing that checklist. That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
So
right.
good. Yeah,
Yes.
so good.
Yes. Okay.
And until we meet again.
Until we meet again, sooner versus later, I hope, my dear.
Sooner versus later, I hope. So much love to you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.